Your countries has been invaded. There is no longer people there that represent interests of Europeans. People of Europe, wake up!
Who has brought us into this terrible situation? Russian President Putin decided to escalate. You are crying.
Exactly.
The West is escalating. What did you expect?
Exactly. We expected you to die.
Guten Morgen. Hello, Vladimir. I was wondering what you just were saying. It sounded interesting, but unfortunately I didn't understand a word.
Oh, I was saying that it's too bad. I thought that interpreters are also working on both sides. I was saying that you spent quite some time in Russia, that you made a couple of very important interviews that appeared on your site. Interview with Margarita Simonyan, interview with Dmitry Peskov, and that you're one of the rare journalists that are trying to let the voice of Russian leaders being heard in German-speaking and English-speaking parts of Europe and the world.
Yeah, interesting. It was very enlightening for me, and I just saw the new cover story of The Economist is an interview or an essay by Andrei Melnichenko, the famous Russian entrepreneur, and he speaks about the whole strategic situation, and he says that a weakened Russia is not in the interest of world stability, and he brings up, you could say, the grand perspective. And this, I think, is interesting, that The Economist, which is not really, guilty of too much sympathy for Russia, they are reflecting more the English, the Great Britain position, but they are coming up with such an interview which can be an indicator that this need for understanding and for mutual discussion is growing. Let's hope.
Roger, come on. Come on, don't give me this crap. Roger, we just witnessed one of the most strategic steps on the scale of escalation that just happened in Ankara. The NATO meeting that basically declared war. Nowadays, Europe is working as the rear of Ukrainian army that is sponsored, armed by European countries. We just saw that European leaders, after escalating ceremony, they signed all possible deals on escalation, stating that, yes, they are behind and they are part of the deep strikes on Russian oil refinery and creating tension inside Russia for the purpose of enforcement Russia into peace. And that it's okay to kill Russians, it's okay to deep strike, that it's okay. That's escalation that can lead to peace. Okay, guys, wake up and smell the coffee. You want escalation, you'll get escalation. I'm not Dmitry Peskov, and by the way, it's not his responsibility to declare war or to decide what and how will be done by our military. Yes, we're extremely responsible state, so for the sake of surviving in this world, you think that deep strikes for our refineries create tension that can lead to enforcement as to peace? We'll destroy every fucking single refinery that you have in Europe because they're working for the benefit of Ukrainian Nazis. And if you want to argue one more time that we cannot call them Nazis, go to Polish guys. They call them Nazis. Even the European Parliament admitted that it's Nazis. You want suffering of Russian people, you'll get suffering of Europeans. All this blah, blah, blah shit that, well, there are certain forces in Europe that they want peace. It's only one purpose. One purpose. Get the temperature of the water in which you boil us up to the level without us saying that. And you, unfortunately, dear Roger, you have those beautiful wishful thinking. You are still trying to be good, and you are good as a person. But you don't see that your countries has been invaded. and that there is no longer people there that represent interests of Europeans. They have stolen. They've stolen what you thought is yours. Nowadays, you have zero influence on European politics. People of Europe, wake up! When finally you'll see Russian rockets hitting most important refineries in Europe. When we'll hit, and we have to hit, all those factories that are working for the interest of Ukrainian Nazis, and they are on Europe. Who's gonna suffer? And of course, please do not buy houses, and please do leave houses near those locations. Please do. Wake up, guys. They've stolen everything from you. You do not control your own governments. It's controlled by homosexual lobby. It's controlled by Alex Skarp, whomever. He has stolen the most important part of every single government, the monopoly on violence. Now, the excessive use of force that has been always done only by the government has been delegated to Palantir. Now, Palantir is deciding who's going to live or who's going to die. Now, Palantir is deciding whether Russian girls in Starobelsk are going to be killed or not, or Iranian girls in the school. He is making decision with his protocol and his program, not the officials that have been elected. Governments are losing the most important monopoly that they always had, monopoly on violence. You don't see it. You still believe in good old Europe.
I see it crystal clear, dear Vladimir. I see it crystal clear. And now I'm going to tell you what you are not seeing at all.
Please do.
I mean, there is one big snorting elephant in the middle of the room you never talk about. And now, okay, you're raising your voice. I can raise my voice too, but I won't raise it. But I will I mean, who at the end of the day has brought us into this terrible situation? Who was the man who decided in February 22 in starting a special military operation which is now lasting longer than the Great Patriotic War, which even Dmitry Peskov, the eloquent and well-reflected spokesman of the Kremlin, starts to call a full-scale war? I mean, Russian President Putin decided to escalate a situation in Ukraine where I agree with you, a situation, a crisis, a problem which has been created by the West. I agree.
Look who's talking, my man.
No.
February 22, Putin.
I was listening to you.
Yes, that's his fault. Yes, it's Putin's fault. And he admitted it.
Let me make my point.
Sure, go ahead.
He decided to escalate in that sense. If you do that, you have to win. You have to have an impression.
Now
and
you're talking.
You have to know
Now
the forces
you're
you are up against. Russia, with this decision, your president, he underestimated Ukraine. He underestimated the West. And now you are crying.
Exactly.
The West is escalating. What did you expect?
Exactly. We expected you to die.
To Russia, that we saying, thank you very much, President Putin, for this war.
Sure, that's what I'm telling you.
Who is living in the world of illusion here?
You don't hear me. Yes, we were forced to do that, and you are right. And that's what I was telling my president, that we had to escalate up to the level that no one ever will be able to fight Mother Russia. We were trying to conduct the police operation. We haven't destroyed Kiev as you motherfuckers destroyed Belgrade. We haven't destroyed Kiev, Ivano-Frankovsk and Lviv, as not you personally, as your NATO forces destroyed and tried to destroy Baghdad, Mosul, and all the cities there. We were trying to be nice. Amount of casualties that happened during this special operation is less than the amount of people in Gaza being killed by Israelis. Yes, we were unfortunately too much humanitarians. We underestimated your stupidity. We were trying to protect and save people of Donbass. They've been killed in numbers. with the help of your motherfucking governments that betrayed Yanukovych, that in 2014 gave all necessary means to motherfucking Nazis in Ukraine that committed the military coup, and you've been supporting them for 8 years, lying to Russia. During this time, you supported Ukrainian Nazis to start massacres in Donbass, when more than 10,000 Donbass people were killed. On February, yes, that's true, on February 15th, you started heavy shelling and bombarding Donetsk, Lugansk. That's led to that people fled from those places, sending their kids and the elderly and the women out of Donbass. You were preparing the same operation that you've done in Yugoslavia. You were preparing to kill Donbass. And because the front line went through Donetsk, it will take hours to destroy thousands of people there, Russian people that you don't give a fuck about. Again, not you personally, the Western culture.
No,
and that's the important thing. So we had to start it because in our national memory, our national memory, it's 22nd of June, 1941. And we saw it's coming. And we said, never fucking again, we'll be not prepared. And we had to start it. But because we are fighting our brothers, almost our mirror, we wanted to be not cruel like you. We wanted to make it like special operation. And that's why Putin addressed Ukrainian army saying, we're not willing to fight you, we're fighting only Nazis. And that's why we went there without killing civilians. We went to Kiev and we were expecting them to do easy steps to de-escalate, to let people of Donbass live the way they wanted to. We were never talking about Zaporozhye, Kherson. Never. In Istanbul, they were ready to sign. And that's where we underestimated you. You're fucking Macron. And you damn liar and absolutely corrupted guy, Boris Johnson. They told Zelensky, who give a fuck about Ukrainians? Kill them all. You're gonna fight. And that's when it's, and yes, you're right. So now if you want us to fight, we'll fight. You want to see what Russian soldier is? Okay. You Europeans will have to take this. You wanted us to have the real fight, you'll have the real fight.
Yeah, but you know...
You want us to see Berlin once again been... How many times Russian army conquered Berlin? How many times? Every single century we're marching in Berlin. It takes... I heard that German culture is not exactly that stupid. But no, once again you want to see us. Yes, it's longer than Great Patriotic War, but it's still not as long as the war we had back in Peter's time.
Come on, Vladimir. I mean, it's utter craziness to talk about Berlin if your army is still in a very heavy fighting in Donbass.
It's different war,
and
man.
Again.
It is different war.
Sorry,
but we don't have to march there. We can destroy it, not without crossing borders, man. Nowadays, we can fucking destroy Berlin without crossing borders, as you understand.
Why I'm invited when I cannot speak? It's impossible for me to utter a point.
Why do you care about Berlin, man?
I care about world peace, and I tell you, I care about Russia. I care about Russia, and I share Andrei Melnichenko's vision that I say it's utter stupidity. I agree with you. It's utter stupidity by the West of trying to push down Russia, to make a strategic weakening of Russia.
Why Trump is destroying Iran?
I see the rhetoric, but Vladimir, what is the sense of now accusing the West? You have
no
the
sense.
president.
You agree. There's no sense. There's only one sense. Destroy West. You're right.
You have
the only thing that we can do is enforce peace by destroying you.
Okay, let me put it that way. My question is to you, Vladimir. Now we are in a situation which is historically rather unprecedented. We have Moscow directly under fire. We have Moscow under attack. This causes huge problem for any government because the prime responsibility of a government is to protect its citizen. And if you escalate the war, and Russia has participated in the escalation, Russia has not created the situation, I agree, but they have participated in the escalation. And if you're starting to talk about Rutte, about Trump, about Boris Johnson, okay, that's an easy shot, but the responsibility also lies with Russia. And if you are arguing, okay, now we're striking Berlin, now we're striking Poland, we're striking all these guys, this is just pure desperation. This is crap.
It is not desperation, it's
Third
war.
World War.
It's not desperation. The World War is there already. Can't you see it? The World War is on.
Yeah,
you are bombarding.
No, it's not.
You destroyed Libya. You destroyed Syria. You destroyed Afghanistan. You destroyed Iraq. You destroyed Yugoslavia. You destroying right now Iran. And you destroyed Venezuela. You are making Cuba suffer. And you are telling me there is no World War? Are you blind?
No, the World War is when Russia, the United States, and China directly go against each other after their throats.
When Palantir is fighting directly against Russia, is it World War or not?
But I mean, what's your goal? What's your
American Palantir?
What's the ultimate objective? You want World War or you want still a peaceful settlement?
There's
and you
no
can accuse me of wishful
settlement.
Thinking. Yeah, I have wishful thinking.
Roger,
I wish for peace and not this madness.
Read what has been told in Ankara. There is no world peace. In Ankara, they signed an agreement on the war on Russia. Read the document. Roger, read the document. Roger, it doesn't mean shit. The important thing is that you are going full-scale war against Russia. So we have only one choice. Either prevent it by escalation, by bringing war on the territory of Europe, or let you kill us. You'll respond immediately after the commercial break, as they say in Switzerland, or after news as well.
And I only hear you talking. Now it's my turn.
Sure, man. Probably.
Meine Damen und Herren, bitte verzeihen Sie diesen überfallartigen Unterbruch. Ich werde das Mikrofon selbstverständlich dem Moderator gleich wieder zurückgeben. Doch vorher habe ich noch eine ganz wichtige Durchsage. Abonnieren Sie die Weltwoche. Gegensteuer, die andere Sicht, unabhängig, kritisch, gut gelaunt, seit über 90 Jahren. Jedes Abo eine Liebeserklärung an die Meinungsvielfalt. Alle Angaben und Informationen finden Sie unter diesem Video. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
To fight back, I think that there are a couple of important numbers that you have to let Western audience know. First of all, we were speaking about February of the 22. Amount of Ukrainian troops that were concentrated on the front line with Donetsk and Lugansk were about 10 times more that amount of soldiers on Donetsk and Lugansk side. So at this moment of time, Ukrainian forces concentrated 10 times more soldiers. Amount of shelling for this week before we had to start special military operation was greater than ever during the war. They were bombarding Donetsk in a scale that they never achieved during coming 4.5 years. So we were 100% sure that they are planning to start military operation on destroying Donbass. So basically, we had no choices. Those numbers are not known in the West. They never consider that on the West. That's why all the estimates and the evaluation is completely bullshit. For example, you know that Konstantinovka is the fortress, very important fortress, that is 7th largest city in Donbass, has been liberated. And President Putin came with initiative to start local ceasefire, to let Ukrainians to collect their dead. And he refused. That's why I came up with very, very scary idea. If they did not want to take the missed inactions and killed soldiers, maybe we should, in coffins, put them in front of the European embassy in Moscow to let Europeans collect those corpses and bury them, because they are behind the war. Because missiles that are striking Russia are using French components, Palantir as a targeting meaning, American-made drones. They're just called Ukrainians, but they're not. That's why our hatred to the West is growing up. And that's why we already see that you are fighting the war against us. As Margarita Simonyan told you, how many Russian tanks, how many Russian missiles, how many Russian planes? None. How many Germans, French, American? A lot fighting against us. Please go ahead.
First, I have to correct you. There was one newspaper who wrote exactly what you just explained, the shelling, the build-up of the Ukrainian forces, and it happens to be my newspaper, Die Weltwoche, which addressed these issues. But of course, you are right, in the public consciousness, it's not there. Second, I share your concern. I think that escalation destroys reason. And this is why I'm not participating in this escalation of words, because as you well know, words can become weapons. Now, the third point, I get attacked a lot in the West because I have the positions I have, because I don't share into this mindless demonization of Russia, in this totally absurd vilification which has lost all proportion. But still, we have to address one thing. This is a question I ask myself. I think, but you can correct me, I think that President Putin made a mistake. He made several mistakes. We talked about the first one. I mean, if you are escalating yourself, even though you are in a situation of necessity, you have to know what you are up to. And Putin underestimated the enemies. You can read all his speeches, how he was making fun of the West. Ukraine is a dysfunctional state, etc. He underestimated his enemies. And now we cannot go into whining melancholy of how bad and how evil the Westerners are. If you go into a fight full scale, okay, you have to be ready for that fight. And the second mistake, but please correct me if I'm wrong, the second mistake was last year. I mean, President Trump, he is NATO. The United States is NATO. Forget Germany, forget France, forget Great Britain. These are, at the moment, dysfunctional states. NATO is the United States of America. And the American president, Trump, is the American president who is unlike any other Republican president, he's on the side of Russia. I mean, you remember back in 2017 when Donald Trump was asked by the Fox TV guy, Bill O'Reilly, what do you think about Putin? And he said, I respect him. And then the Fox moderator was totally astonished and said, what? You're respecting Putin, but he's a killer. And Trump said, well, he might be a killer, but you know, there are many killers out there, and don't you think we Americans are so innocent? So you have an American president who is not metaphysically against Russia, and he was eager on ending this war, and that is still his agenda. At the moment he thinks by escalating it, he can bring peace closer. He might make a mistake, so you have to convince him that this is a mistake. But somehow, along the way, Putin was too stubborn. I mean, come on, for 10% of Donbas territory, you want to blow up the world? Are you crazy? Are you totally out of your mind? This is irresponsible talk, and one should never go into this kind of chamber of hell, even not even rhetorically. So why didn't Putin just make a compromise? Why didn't he find an agreement with the Americans? Now Trump is also pissed off. Now he's helping a bit more the Ukrainian side. He said, well, they can have the Patriots, they can license them in 2 years, probably they can build them themselves. But he's not as directly involved, probably, as some European countries. So you can lament on the Europeans. I share a lot of your opinions myself, but here in your program, it is my duty to address some of the errors I see or we see on the side of your president. And I have a respect for your president as well. I see his great achievements. I see what he saved Russia from the 90s. He was the great stabiliocrat, or how you want to call him. He brought stability, he brought pride, he brought also stability on the world stage. He doesn't get acknowledged for that. He doesn't get the proper credit he deserves. But now he made some serious mistakes, I think. And why is Putin so stubborn that he couldn't make a compromise to end this war, which is now causing problems for Russia? And if Russia gets into trouble, if you are not able to protect your own people in Moscow, in this window of Russian greatness, if the cars have to line up in front of the gas stations, I don't know Russia so well as you, but I can imagine the people are not amused, and they don't think that their government is doing at the moment an extremely good job in protecting them. And the question is, why is the Russian president so
answers?
intransigent? Why
Okay,
didn't he
I
take
can
the
give you
chance
answers.
with Trump? Why
Quite
didn't he
easily.
take the chance?
Quite easily. First of all, sometimes when you run the country, you have to make decisions that you cannot not to make, that you are forced to make. Sometimes you have to make decisions when you're not completely ready. But if you don't make this decision, the outcome will be much worse. It was not our desire. We were forced to do it. And if we didn't start it at this moment of time, can you imagine in what position we'll be in a week or in 2 weeks, when Donbass will be already destroyed? And what will happen inside Russia, when Russian people will ask Putin why we didn't do whatever we could to stop the massacre of Russians in Donbass? And that will lead to unrest in Russia. And that was one of the major ideas of Western political leaders that were telling at first Poroshenko and then Zelensky to escalate. So we had to start it, although, of course, we were not planning any form of big war for the last 30 years. It was not in plans of any military. At the same time, you can ask the same question to Trump. Why have you started war in Iran? And you thought it's going to be over in 2 weeks, in 4 weeks, 6 months later, it's still on. And you're suffering, and you cannot win. Mm-hmm. And you can ask the same question to Europeans. How come that they started every single war and they cannot end them? They're stuck in Afghanistan for 2 decades. They've started in Iraq for decades, and they've lost them all. So how come that they've started military campaign and they've lost them completely? And they got terror in their countries, and they could not protect their own capitals from the terrorist attacks. Neither in Spain, no in Paris, no in Germany. So how come? How could you? What happened with all your leaders? They underestimated, they made all the mistake. That's called real life and real politics.
That's
when
true.
you're talking about Trump and Putin, I was not there in Anchorage. I don't know what they discussed. But as far as I'm concerned, we've done all necessary steps. And we came to certain agreement, as was told by Mr. Ushakov and as was mentioned by people from Kremlin, Americans came to us with proposal. And we accepted this proposal. And then they went to Zelensky. And they could not force him to accept proposal. So it's not a question of a relationship with Russia and America. It's the question of relationship of Trump with Zelensky and with Europe. And if you remember, after Anchorage, there was, especially after meeting in White House when Zelensky was completely destroyed, Europeans went to Trump to change his point of view. So they are fighting for Zelensky, they're fighting against Russia. When you're saying, why don't you sacrifice 10% of your territory and you're willing to destroy the whole world? Have you ever read the agreement of NATO, the document itself? You are stating that every square inch of NATO territory is sacred and you'll fight for it. And now you're telling us to give away 10% of the territory. It's never been a question of territory. It's the question of people living on this territory. That's why we never actually wanted to conquer Ukraine. Because it's not that we need territory. We're the largest country in the world. It's the question of people living on those territories and their will. And that's what democracy is about. The word that unfortunately is completely forgotten in the West. You don't, once again, not you personally, European political leaders don't even think about people living on the territories of those republics. They couldn't care less about people in Crimea, Zaporozhye, Kherson, Donbass. They made their choice. They don't want to be with Ukraine. They don't want to be under Nazi ideology. We are listening to these people. And that's what Putin is saying all the time. So that's why it's not a question of just territory. It's much more important. Plus, immediately, if any political leader will say, oh, okay, I can sacrifice my territory, can you imagine what's going to happen inside this state? For example, Denmark. What do they have to do with Greenland? They have zero, basically, interest there, according to Donald Trump. But according to the political forces of Denmark, we can never do that. It's sacred. And they are willing to fight for the land against United States. I'd love to see this picture. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
It will be an incredible fight, probably about 10 minutes or 7 minutes. But get back to reality. When we're getting back to reality, you do know history of Russia quite well. Do you actually believe that by creating tension in Russia, creating all the problems for Russian people, you will force Russian people to say, okay, let's stop the war? Or you will force Russian people to say, okay, let's fight Europeans, let's destroy them? You know Russian character. We're Russians, we love to suffer. We love to suffer, and we will overcome. We'll overcome all the hardships and all the misfortunes. Well, it sounds like Shakespeare, Hamlet, but it's okay.
But let me
To
say
be or not to
something
be,
here.
that will be the question for Europeans. The answer for Russians is quite easy. Once again, West is willing to destroy our state. As it happened in 1916, 1917, when Russian political so-called leaders betrayed its country. It's happened in 1991, when Soviet leaders betrayed its people. It won't happen again. It's patriotic war as far as we're concerned. We're fighting against Nazis. And of course, Nazis are trying to create hardship for our people. Okay, so we'll have to fight back.
But there
Are
is-
you ready?
but there is one essential difference. And this is why I'm totally against using this Nazi language crap. Of course, these
crap?
guys, we don't
Tell it
have
to
to
Polish
discuss
guys.
it. We don't
Tell
have
it
to
to
go into
Polish
that.
guys that it's crap.
No, come on. Let me, no. Because, you know, I know all this stuff. I know these are terrible guys. I know they have Nazi symbols. They have swastikas. These are terrible guys. It's a shame. It's a shame for Europe that we are supporting these people, that our taxpayers pay for these kind of ultranationalist lunatics. Absolutely agreed. But if we start to talk, if we start to shape this conflict in terms of 41 to 45, the Great Patriotic War, there is a huge flaw in your argument. And the flaw is the following. Ukraine was a sovereign, independent state. They had an interior conflict with the eastern provinces, with the Donbass. And of course, there was also Russian influence. It got out of hand. You had the so-called some kind of civil war. You have the situation in Crimea, but it's not the case that there was like some lunatic dictator in Europe sending 3 or 4 million troops through Ukraine to Russia in order to destroy and enslave your people. I mean, this is also a war of your choosing. It's not just the fate. You know, we had to. A wise politician always have an alternative, and I think, and this is my point.
You really don't get it.
I had a conflict.
Roger, you really don't get it. We are not coming from Calvinist ideology. We're completely from different set of mentality. And that's what I told you when we just started our discussions. That's the big problem. You look at us and you think that we basically mentally very close to you, but we're not. And that's the big problem. As far as we're concerned, there's no difference, man. There's no difference. Nazis are killing our people. That's it. And we don't care whether it's 3 or 4 million people from Germany, or whether it's 400,000 people from Ukraine. We don't care.
But
we care about saving Russians.
But they have a very important point here. You said this is also for the Russian audience important. I deeply regret that in the West, we are hypnotized, self-hypnotized by our own propaganda, by this image of President Putin being the ultimate evil. What I see in your program, and you are the Darth Vader of Russian television, I'm here the Obi-Wan Kenobi with my laser sword fighting your arguments. I see the same mechanism on your side.
I'm not your father.
To talk to hypnotize yourself.
I'm not your father.
No, but now I'm not Luke Skywalker. I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was the former partner. They were partners in arms.
You turn out that they're all relatives.
You have to watch Star Wars again. You have to watch Star Wars again. No, my thing is, world history is a series of misunderstandings. And don't dig yourself into a hole telling to yourself that we are in the situation like 1941. We are not.
We are.
And the Russian people.
We are.
You know much better the Russian people. But if they have the impression that the Russian president has miscalculated, then their willingness to follow him is probably not there. And the second
You're
point
wrong. The same mistake that Hitler made with Stalin.
Yeah,
He thought that after 6 months, when Russia lost a lot of territory and a lot of people were captured, that Russian people will fight against Stalin. That's what I'm saying. You do not understand Russians.
No.
We see where the problem is. Putin is our president. We elected him. And we never elected neither motherfucker Macron, who's been beaten by his wife, no Scholz, no Merz. We didn't give them a chance to decide our destiny.
Yeah.
We are fighting for Russian people.
But
we were not planning to fight. You decided to participate in this fight. Okay. It was your choice at first to support military coup, to betray Yanukovych. Yeah. It was your choice. That's what Angela told to Russian prankers when she explained that was her idea, to do whatever she could to support Ukrainians. They were doing this. They were interfering with this. They were planning this. And plus, we have almost 1,000 years history of non-stop war against West. So, man, we are people with memory. And we do believe that, unfortunately, you're not learning any lessons. I'm not talking about Swiss guys, but I'm talking mainly about, look at what Pistorius has to say. Look at what they signed in Ankara. Look at all those people are saying. But once again, man, you're pragmatic. You should be as a Calvinist. Well, you have to be pragmatic. If you put on your territory, Europeans, Ukrainian manufacturing of military weapon that is targeting Russia, why it shouldn't be destroyed? If you guide and give whatever is necessary to destroy Russian oil refineries, what makes you think that your own oil refineries are safe and secure?
I share these concerns. I address them, I voice them, even on an international level. But on the other hand, you cannot, as Russians, and this is now a crucial point, you cannot unleash hell from your side. I mean,
Why?
what there is one
You
concern
can,
I have.
and we
Let me
can-
say that. No,
Man,
let me say. There's one thing, please, let me say. There is one thing that concerns
I'm on the other
me.
side. I'm on the other side. You cannot understand.
Sure, I know, but
we are good. We will go. You don't understand this. We'll go to heaven and you go to hell. You have no church, not Switzerland, but Germany. You have no Christianity. You have homosexuals running your countries. You forgot all the Christian values, man. We discussed it to start with. Why do you think that you're on the side of good when you're the purest form of evil? You are the purest form of evil, man. Look at Macron. Isn't he evil? Look at Merz. Isn't he evil?
He's
Look
at the end. Macron is a living dead politician. Come on. He will be kicked out of his office. Don't fight against
he's still there.
These bogeyman people. No, you know what the point is? A problem is, and this is my concern,
Sure.
in the Russian government, with your president, and this is the difference to Donald Trump. You're totally right. Trump starts a war. He says, I'm a peace bringer. Then he starts war in Venezuela. He starts war in Iran. But you know what is the difference between Trump and Putin? Trump, he brings up so many war objectives that he can walk out any minute and declare victory. And this is my concern, that your president, he can never say, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Or he can never say, okay, let's stop it. It's not worth fighting for 10% of Donbass territory, Ukrainian territory, for 10% to risk a world war. Putin can never do that.
Constitutionally,
he can never
it's our
say, I
territory.
made a mistake, because then he's dead.
He did.
He did?
Of course. He stated.
Why?
Putin
Tell
said
me, Vladimir,
he made a
why
mistake.
doesn't he just stop now? I mean,
I
you
can
have
explain
almost
why.
conquered
I
whole
can explain
Donbass.
why. I can explain
He
why.
should stop now.
You don't understand mistake that he did. You never followed him. He said, I made a mistake. I should start it earlier. We will finish what we started. We're Russians. We'll always go to the very end.
And in
We
the
will not
Crimean
stop
War, in the
until
Crimean War
our
in the
goals.
19th
If we have to destroy you all, we'll destroy you all. We have our goals. Come on, man. It's in Bible. When the God told you, you go and kill them all. Isn't it? It's in the Bible, man.
Now you have spent
Now
too
we're
many
talking.
years in the United
Now
States.
we're talking, but we'll have to continue next
You know,
week.
if
And
in
every
the
time.
in the United States, if someone is totally desperate, he comes up with the Bible. You have spent too much time in
No.
the United
That's
States.
important. If you come to the Bible, that means that you're religious and you believe in God. And that's not a desperation, because hope is in God and in Bible.
I believe in God,
but when you
but I don't
start
believe in
talking like,
religion.
oh, when you start talking about Bible, that means they're desperate. No, that means that you are on the wrong side. That means that you are on the wrong side. That you're on the side of homosexuality. That you're on the side of kids raping. That you're on the side of Epstein Island. We are on the other side. And not personally you, but I'm talking about European politicians. Name me just one representative of political leaders that right now in power in the West that you can call real Christian. Just one in Europe.
Bundesrat Guy Parmelin, the president of Switzerland, Guy Parmelin, he's a true Christian.
Is he in
He's a
NATO?
friend of peace.
Is he in
and he's a
NATO?
true believer in Swiss neutrality.
Right. Is he in NATO?
No, NATO,
Aha.
of course
Too
not.
bad. So
Yeah.
in NATO, can you name me one?
Let
You'll
me
have
think
time till
about
next
it,
week.
but
You have time till next week to
one
remember because
sentence from a Calvinist. We are all on the wrong side. This is
no.
the point of
That's
Calvinist
your
theology.
yeah, but that's your
Human beings are
Calvinist.
always.
That's why you're a sect, not a real religion, as far as we're concerned. All those you don't even have sense of humor in Calvinism. It has been forbidden
Absolutely.
for many years.
These cliches,
You were not even
come on.
allowed to
You're
smile.
falling under your level
for
of
centuries,
argument.
you were not even allowed to have any jokes. That's why I cannot name even one great comedian coming from Switzerland.
What? Of course, we have so many. Emil Steinberger, he's
like
the
when?
best. You haven't even heard of him. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. They were so
Vladimir.
great that no
No
one ever heard about them.
idea.
That's already a joke. That's the best with joke. We have great comedians, but no one ever heard about them. Okay, we'll get back next week. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, see you. Next time, theology.
We have to win this war, and we have to do whatever it takes to win this war.
How close are we that Russia is going to strike targets outside the territory of Ukraine? Huge war in Europe.
It is inevitable because that's what your governments have been heavily invested into. If you want to know exactly what we have in mind, you should listen to Vladimir Putin. We have great technological schools of weapon manufacturers. Why should we wait?
Grüezi miteinander, ganz herzlich willkommen und einen wunderschönen guten Tag, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, liebe Freunde aus nah und fern. Ich begrüße Sie zu dieser neuerlichen Sondersendung von Weltwoche Daily, die andere Sicht, unabhängig, kritisch, zuversichtlich, aufgezeichnet am Mittwoch, dem 15. Juli 2026. Ich habe einen Gast im Studio, mit dem man eigentlich gar nicht reden sollte. Er gilt bei uns im Westen als ein finsterer Propagandist des Kreml, als eine laute Stimme und als jemand, mit dem es absolut verboten sein soll, ins Gespräch zu kommen. Aber Sie haben sich in den letzten Wochen ja bereits Ihren eigenen Eindruck verschaffen können. Und wenn man den Schweizern sagt, sie sollen etwas nicht tun, dann machen sie gerade das Gegenteil. Ich freue mich, dass er sich Zeit genommen hat für ein außerplanmäßiges Gespräch. Wladimir Solovyov, eine der wichtigsten journalistischen Stimmen in Russland, und natürlich sehr gut vertraut mit den Entwicklungen auf dem Schlachtfeld. Er ist wöchentlich an der Front und natürlich auch mit den Vorgängen in Russland. Und nach meiner Einschätzung sind wir an einer sehr gefährlichen Abbruchkante dieses Krieges. Und ich möchte mit ihm darüber das Gespräch führen, was eigentlich auf uns zukommt und wo die Probleme und Missverständnisse liegen. Denn ich glaube, wir sind hier wirklich in einer sehr besorgniserregenden Lage. Nun wechsle ich auf Englisch, um ihn reinzuholen. Dear Vladimir, thanks for joining our program. I've just introduced you with the usual cliches, but I'm very much concerned.
Being Jewish, I'm used to cliches.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very much concerned about the overall situation and where this war is heading to, and I want to talk with you in our conversation about your view on where we stand, but also I'm curious then to hear what is your advice to our Western European audience. But first of all, let me ask you this: where do we stand in this war? Can you give us, from your perspective, an objective Lagebeurteilung, a assessment of the situation in this moment?
Okay, on the front line, the situation is moving. We are getting back our constitutional land, and I think that by the end of this year, we'll definitely liberate Donbass. and probably I would say the most part of Zaporozhye and Kherson. It depends. At the same time, as we stated, unfortunately, because of unstopping shelling of our territory, we will have to create some sort of barriers for protection of our soil. As of now, we are on the outskirts of Sumy, quite important city in former Ukraine. We are on a artillery shell distance to Kharkiv. We liberated Konstantinovka. That was extremely important fortress in Donbass. So we are getting back our territory, not as fast as we'd love to, but with the very low casualties on our side. There is Western propaganda that Russians are losing an enormous amount of people. That's complete bullshit. It's quite easy to verify by the amount of bodies during every single exchange, the ratio, plus the new graves, compare in Ukraine and in Russia. So there are ways of evaluating. When Zelensky states in that we have filmed death of every single soldier, it's complete bullshit. But unfortunately, they do have videotaped, should I say, or recorded death of a lot of civilians that were hunted by FPV drones, generously sponsored by Europeans. But that's not what I would say is of European concern. I'm not in a position to give any advice to Europeans, and definitely they're not willing to listen to any advices coming from our side. But I do have a warning for them. Let me start with a few facts. As of yesterday, the commander of 155th Brigade that has been formed and trained, formed in Ukraine, trained on the territory of France, named after Anna the Kiev, has been arrested for murdering two civilians, brothers, that he considered annoyed him and his family. They just killed them. At the same time, in Spain, for the last 2 years, less, there were 3 assassinations when prominent Ukrainian politicians were killed. One of the very popular Ukrainian origin blogger, Anatoly Sharin, has been assassinated a few times. He made a huge investigation on that. A couple of weeks ago, explosion in Monaco. Because of this explosion, one of the Cyprus citizen, former Ukrainian citizen, oligarch, extremely rich, was badly wounded, and the lady that has accompanied him lost her legs, and now they're fighting for her life. During investigation, it became clear that assassination has been made by special forces of Ukraine and implemented by the lady named Berezovskaya, who immediately after the assassination fled Monaco, and it looked like on a car with diplomatic numbers, were brought straight to Ukraine, where she was tortured and murdered by 2 representatives of Ukrainian Secret Service. One of them still working for the Ukrainian Secret Service, the other one, former member of the police. Both, of course, very close to Nazi circles, and they used to be in the same squad in the Nazi battalion. At the same time, Monaco is overloaded, as well, by the way, as Switzerland, with very expensive vehicles with Ukrainian license plates. There is so-called Battalion Monaco of wives, kids, relatives of very famous Ukrainian politicians that are heavily spending money that there is no way they could get legally out of Ukraine. It's money that has been stolen from American and Ukrainian taxpayers. In the center of Kiev, one of the largest and most, I would say, luxurious showroom of extremely expensive vehicles, Bentley, Rolls-Royces. Most expensive yachts nowadays have been ordered and built by Ukrainian oligarchs. But this part of life is not that bordering. But look, right now there are a few million Ukrainians that fled Ukraine. Among them, a couple of thousand people, members of criminal families and criminal circles, that nowadays have to decide what is Europe. Is it just yet another, let's say, hunting ground for European money? At the same time, for more than 10 years, actually 12 years, since 2014, through the front line in Donbass rotated not less than 600,000 to 700,000 Ukrainian soldiers, well-trained, motivated, and for 12 years know nothing but killing and getting what they wanted from civilians. After the war, that's not how it's going to end. Definitely, there will be nothing left in Ukraine worth stealing, robbing, or even looking at. The land is heavily mined. There are mines almost everywhere. It's heavily bombarded, so there's a problem with electricity, the problem with heat. And definitely, we're going to be creating hell for Ukrainians because they're trying to create hell for Crimea, trying to hit Moscow, St. Peter. Of course, we're much more powerful than they are. So Ukraine, at the end of the day, will not be an exact place where from 200,000 to 300,000 people will easily find a decent job that will get them what they're right now expecting at the end of the war. Mm-hmm. They are not badly paid. So now they do have money. After the war, there won't be anything left. Where shall they go? They will become part of European Union. So it will be free access to Europe. Mm. So there will be a couple of 100,000 well-trained, motivated men hating Europe for the fact that they have not did their job to get Russians all killed, because there are too many of us, and willing to pay you, European people, for all the misfortunes of Ukraine. Because the next step that I will say, why there are so many our comrades been killed? Because we've been run by Jewish government, where Zelensky is Jew. Most part of the members of his government are not of Ukrainian nationality. He has been doing it to steal our money, not to get us the level of life that we wanted to. Now, what shall we do? We'll let you Europeans pay. And in a couple of months, you will see rise of criminal activity in Europe. You will see Ukrainian mafias robbing your banks, making terrorist attacks with new kind of weapon on the new level of military knowledge, with all the funny gadgets that you are giving them right now being thrown against you. And you have to be ready. Are you sure that your police forces, that your secret services will be able to protect people of Europe from oncoming hell?
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is basically this war is turning dirty with these events we have seen in Monaco, among others. And this is like foreshadowing what is coming after.
Exactly.
And what could come upon Europe. Before we talk about what this
inevitable.
What this means for Europe, I think that's very important, because our audience, our viewers, they never get an authentic, clear voice from Russia. This is all cancelled. It's all forbidden. We are in a black hole of our own choosing of information, hypnotized by our own preconceptions, by our prejudice, and I once wrote by our anti-Slavic impulses, which are deeply ingrained in some of our traditions. But let us be, in our assessment, very clear and objective. Going back to the war, as it is going right now, we see the escalation ladder. We see the Europeans quite self-confident, pumping a lot of arms and money into Ukraine. We see an American President Trump who spoke of escalation in the belief this escalation could lead to peace. And now this escalation is going, it's hitting your country. We see the people queuing up for gasoline. This is a big, big topic in our newspapers. They say Russia is hanging in the ropes, more or less. I just slightly overdo it. They say President Putin is under pressure. He's questioned. You have oligarchs like Andrei Melnichenko speaking up in The Economist, which is seen as some kind of disorientation or turmoil in the Russian elite. And the big question is, how will Russia react to this escalation, which is happening right now? And what is your view on that? I mean, what will happen? What do we have to face? How close are we that Russia is going to strike targets outside the territory of Ukraine? Let me say one last thing. I think it's a very concerning fact that the so-called coalition of the willing, they have decided to do maneuvers together with Ukrainian soldiers on Polish territory, right on the border of Ukraine, step one. And step two, they have decided to build up a common air defense umbrella protection in Ukraine, which is considered to be a further step of NATO into this war. So what is the dangerous point at the moment? What are the risks? What is happening? Are we unleashing hell at the moment? What do you think?
Okay, let's go step by step. First of all, is there pressure on Putin? Of course. What kind of pressure? You think they are telling our president, all those people, including oligarchs, please do stop the war? Wrong. They're telling Putin, destroy them all. Wipe them out clean. That's what Russia is about. That's what Russian character is about. Queuing for gasoline? Wake up, guys. We went through 90s. We had zero of gasoline for weeks. We went through 90s without salaries, without pensions. We are survivors. We were trying to fight this war and be nice. So what people are telling right now, Putin, we are ready. Let's go and raise hell. They want to see our rage, they'll get our rage. We are not the kind of people that under pressure would say, no. Let's stop. It's going to be worse. Vice versa. We're saying that our commander-in-chief, we're here, shoulder to shoulder. We are ready to march and finish the job that our grandfathers decided not to finish. If you remember, Joseph Stalin was the person that said that Hitlers come and go, but German people will stay for good. We were saviors of Germany when other allies wanted Germany to be disassembled on pieces. We decided not to. And according to Gorbachev, we were the one that, in spite of British and other guys, decided that East and West Germany should live together. We will never ever commit this mistake one more time. So pressure that is right now on Putin is completely going on the wrong direction for Europe. We don't give up. If we have to die, we'll die. But give up, it's not about our people. It is not about Putin. And it's not about people that can be called Putin's team. On Melnichenko and others. Melnichenko, I spoke with him last night. I asked him, what the hell is it? What kind of blah, blah, blah stuff is in this Economist? Why are you even talking to one of the worst motherfuckers in this world? This Arkady Ostrovsky shit. How come that you managed to speak with this motherfucker without slapping his ugly face?
No
His answer
insults
was,
needed
"Come on."
in this program.
He-
We know that,
I
that the
don't care
Economist correspondent
I
is
don't
not
care
your
much. I
friend.
don't care about his correspondent. He's a traitor. He is a traitor of Jewish people. He is a traitor of Mother Russia. He does not deserve any form of respect. He is serving Nazis. Every single Jewish person that betrayed his people, betrayed his history, and became this, I won't use the word, but you know what I mean. We had this type of guys in concentration camps. We had this type of guys.
I
But
was actually
he's
going
not the
for a
point.
more
The
of
point
an
is
analytical
Melnichenko.
program this
So I
time.
spoke with
I'm sorry.
Melnichenko, and I told Melnichenko, what the hell is it? And he told me, no. We have to win this war. And we have to do whatever it takes to win this war. Melnichenko is not the head of the coup against Putin. That is in your wishes. That's been in one of the articles a long time ago in Wall Street Journal somewhere else that, come on guys, you are part of European society. Your kids went to the schools here. Your wives do live. Come on, just kill Putin and that's it. You are wrong. You are wrong. First of all, you show all our oligarchs that we don't respect you, that we can steal your assets at any moment of time. There's no law if you're Russian. We'll decide to sanction you with no reason and we'll kick you out of our country. We'll annoy your families. We'll annoy your kids. You think Russians will ever forgive you? Long time ago, Bismarck told that never ever underestimate Russians. They will always come back for what is theirs. You must be really out of your mind, people. You found definitely wrong crowd to mess with. So Melnichenko, if it's necessary, will take machine gun and will go not to storm Kremlin, but to storm a Reichstag, as well as all other oligarchs. They can be daydreaming of times that will never come back. But at the end of the day, there is a choice. And it's not Putin, it's motherland. You are not fighting Putin. That's what you do not understand. You are fighting Russian interest, Russian will to survive in this world. You are fighting Russian language, Russian culture, Orthodox Church. And in our scale of values, top priority is God and motherland. And our own life, well, if we need to sacrifice it for the good purpose, we will. We do not value our lives as top priority, higher than motherland, higher than God, even higher than our families. And that's the big problem. We look like you. And you start thinking that we also psychologically wise, extremely close to you. But as I mentioned during our first conversation, it's completely wrong assessment. We're absolutely different. Our values completely different. When they are saying, oh, okay, we will protect skies of Ukraine. With what? With your airplanes and with your pilots, so we'll kill them all. You're saying, oh, we will put our troops on the ground as peacekeeping forces. No, you cannot do that without permission of Security Council. And we are members of the Security Council, will never give you this permission. So every single soldier, European, on the territory of Ukraine will be a legitimate target, and we'll do whatever we can to destroy them using whatever weapon is requested for this job.
And what about the escalation scenario?
Of
what
course.
do you see concretely? What
Sure.
kind of targets do you think would Russia strike outside of Ukraine?
Russia already published a list of potential targets on the territory of Europe. It has been done by two our ministries of Defense and Foreign Affairs. Those are exact locations of the factories that are working for Ukrainian military and is jointly owned by Ukrainian and Western investors. They are legitimate targets. At the same time, we do understand that your attempt, because you are the one that targeting, you are the one that providing information, and according to Alex Karp, you are the one that actually doing the whole job of finding the target, leading to the target, and destroying the target. If you willing to destroy our oil refinery, be sure that your oil refinery gonna be destroyed. We still haven't paid back for the act of terrorism on pipelines, Nord Stream. This one is still in the post, the response, but it will come. So we will never ever target civilians. We are not Ukrainians. We are not paying in the scale of points for killed Russian girls. We are not Alex Karp. We don't have allergy on kids. We respect human life. We value, first of all, motherland and God, but we respect human life. That's why, as we mentioned many times, this war has less ratio of casualties for civilians. That's position of Putin. That's why you can be 100% sure that we will never ever be targeting civilians in Europe. We'll never ever will be hitting apartment complexes where civilians are living, but they can be collateral damage if we're hitting factories. So people that are living side by side with those facilities should definitely reconsider whether it's been wise investment into real estate. But
can you name a few?
We will destroy them all.
Can you name a few of these targets? Because people here are not familiar with this list of 120 targets.
Guys, can you please send me a list of legitimate targets that have been published by Ministry of...
We can talk about this later. When
we can do it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Send me, please, a list of official targets that have been named by Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Europe, that we know.
When I was talking to Dmitry Peskov last week in Moscow, it was a very interesting conversation. I asked him, how is the situation on the battlefield? What about escalation? Do you need the escalation in order to achieve your war goals? And then Dmitry Peskov said, no, we don't need to escalate the war on the supporters of Ukraine. We will reach our goals anyway. What do you say to this?
I would say that Dmitry Peskov is extremely nice, polite, very professional diplomat. During the war, diplomats are not the one to listen. If you want to know exactly what we have in mind, you should listen to Vladimir Putin. He is the one and only person who has all the power and who is commander-in-chief of Russian military. And he will never ever share his decisions on military campaign and the way it should go with anyone but generals that will have to implement plans that should be implemented on the battlefield. So Dmitry Sergeyevich is a very good friend of mine. I respect him a lot. But I would say that his personal opinion, but not the voice of our president on this matter.
You get, as I said at the in my intro, you are, of course, criticized, sanctioned in the West, which I think is an absolute disgrace, since you are an opinion maker, you are a journalist, you are a very successful TV moderator. Just to put my cards here on the table, I think it's absolutely shameful that Russians like you get sanctions, or Valery Gergiev, famous musicians, that your sports teams
But
cannot
funny enough,
participate.
America hasn't sanctioned me yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
this
never
is
been
my-
applying for visa, for the last
yeah, I mean,
10 years.
it's
but
something.
funny that
It's
I'm not
something.
sanctioned by America.
It makes me feel ashamed of this Western Europe culture. I'm part of it, and this is a very, very bad thing. But I mean, fortunately, we still have here the conversation we can lead, and you know, this is, for me, that's my motivation. Since a lot of people in Western Europe are totally trapped in their own conceptions of this war, it's extremely important that they listen to people like you. They don't have to agree with you, but they can build their own opinion. And you are very close.
Sorry,
But the people,
sorry, man. Let me get you the list.
sure. Oh, you got it. Very, very good. Then
Yeah,
I can-
okay. Companies in Europe. That's the info from 26th of March.
Yes.
So the list has been considered. Great Britain, Mildenhall, West Row Road 2. London, King Edward Street 17, Leicester, Meridian North Block 5. Munich, Fellowske Strasse 10. Munich, Lerchenauer Strasse 28. Denmark, Støvring, Ostreale 6. Latvia, Riga, Latgales 462. Litva, Vilnius, Darius ir Gireno 21A. Netherlands, Hengelo, Hagsbelgradsstrasse 71 Strat. Hengelo, Opelstraat 60. Poland, Melec, ulica Wojska Polskiego 3. Poland, Tarnów, ulica Jana Kochanowskiego 30. Czechia, Praga, ulica Nastrži 1702 65. Germany, Hanau, Lise Mainterstrasse 33. Spain, Madrid, San Sebastian de los Reyes, Taide 3. Italy, Venezia, Via del Artigianato 12. Italy, Garbagnante Milanese, Via Forlanini 76. Italy, Piedmont, Via Gaetano Salvemini. And there are a whole bunch of it, man. Even in Israel, in Turkey, with all exact addresses. So you can see it. And that's just the beginning.
So, do you expect? I talked to some influential people in Russia, I would say, from, in the economy, but also in politics. And some of them told me that they expect a full-scale war in a very short period of time, not because Russia is willing to go into this war, because Russia is forced into this war. Are we heading to a Armageddon-like huge war in Europe? What's your personal?
Of course, because
You think it's inevitable?
it is inevitable, because that's what your governments have been heavily invested into. We were not escalating first. Let me remind you, we were ready to stop in Istanbul. And it was not even a question of Zaporozhye. It was not even a question of Kherson. And the Ukrainian side agreed. And it was Boris Johnson and Macron that insisted on continuing the war. That led to more than 1 million Ukrainians being killed. More than 1 million Ukrainians being killed. And that's why Istanbul documents, they are so scary for European and Ukrainian officials. Because in those documents, there's not even a word of conquering Ukraine, of grabbing territories, of colonialism. No. It's only Crimea and Donbass. That was it. Every single time when we have to continue war, we're saying that. Next time we'll negotiate on the conditions that we're facing on the battlefield. And every time it's worse for the Ukrainian side. And every time Ukrainians are paying with their blood, as have been told by a Polish politician, it's the best possible scenario. Ukrainians pay with blood, and we provide them with rusted metal. Let me remind you that Lindsey Graham, who is right now facing devil, and definitely he is in hell, he was the one saying, oh, that's the best possible investment. Russians are dying. That's quote. You were the one, I mean, Europeans and American taxpayers, that without even knowing it, are paying for the end of this world. Macron, been heavily beaten by his wife, couldn't find any better way to prove his masculine energy as by sending Ukrainians to die. I'm not sure whether Merz is popular right now in Germany, but he is willing with Pistorius to participate in this war. They're all getting back to these huge militaries that they used to have. They are talking about enrollment of young people into military. They want to make it obligatory. What for? What for? To fight Russia? For what purpose? Oh, yeah, I forgot. Russia gonna strike Europe with all its mighty force, sending land troops. Who believes in this bullshit? If that was the purpose to start with, why we're still not in Poland and Baltic states, or in Finland, with whom we have borders? Why do we have to go to Europe through Ukraine? We never wanted to. And Putin stated it 2,000 times. But in Europe, they don't want to listen. They want this war.
This argument
$140 billion or euros for 2 years. You decided to supply Ukraine with 140 billion euros. You have this amount of money with all the problems of your economy? You're saying that Russia is in trouble. We, with our slow growth, is still growing faster than Europe. Well, we definitely are not the one that are extremely bad economic situation. Yes, our economic situation is probably worse than it should be, thanks to the most beloved person in the West, a Russian head of central bank, that I think made all possible mistakes. And she's living in completely alternative reality. But it's our problem that we'll deal with. Look at your problems. You invited immigrants. It was done by Angela Merkel. And you got a lot of scary criminals coming from Middle East, from Asia, that created hell, that are raping your women, that are robbing your banks, that creating terrorist attacks. But they are nothing in comparison with the terrorist attacks that will be implemented by Ukrainians, well-trained, well-motivated, and it won't be that easy for you to find out, is it Ukrainian or not? They look like you guys, or like you used to look. It's a question nowadays.
Why do you think that this big, huge war again, here we go again in Europe, is inevitable? Can you explain that? Just because many viewers in the West will say, this is this typical warmongering, scary, scaremongering crap from the Kremlin.
Can you
please
imagine?
Analytically explain why?
I'm analytically explaining. I'm just looking at the expenses. You are putting yourself into a debt trap. Mm-hmm. You do not have this amount of money that you are investing into this war. You have decline of your manufacturing facilities, and now you are trying to fight this decline with military orders. You decided to invest an enormous amount of money into your military-industrial complex. You decided that you're going to spend 70 plus billion euros per year only on Ukraine. Plus, you signed an agreement with the United States that 5% of your GDP will have to be on the military expenses. You are getting yourself into a position that you have somehow to pay back for this investment. That's not my desire. It's just pure evaluation of risks.
Yeah.
And then it's becoming prophecy,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and that's so bad about it. Because now you have generation of political leaders that cannot step back because they're heavily corrupted. They invested into the warmongers that are working for the military-industrial complex and for the new type of military companies like Palantir. They are paying for the new politicians to come on stage that are only interested in getting those budgets bigger and bigger. So it's a machine, it's money-making machine for them that will lead to a huge blood afterwards for the taxpayers. And it's meat grinder that they started. And they will need every time more and more fresh meat to get back the product.
But let's go into the nerve center of the command structure of Russia. Why do you think that the very cautious, in my eyes, and rational Mr. Putin will decide to strike these targets in Europe? Where do you see the military and strategic rationale from the Russian side? Because at the end of the day, it will be the Russian president authorizing these strikes. And there are people in the West who say that doesn't make sense. Why should he do it? I mean, he will unleash hell. He has problems in Ukraine already. His troops are not advancing fast. Why? What is in your view? And it's not a rhetorical question. I really want to know, because you're very close to the Russian troops, to the military. You talk to these guys, you talk to soldiers, you talk to officers. So where is the rationale from the Russian side to escalate, to strike these European countries?
Of course, it's quite easy. Right now, you still have 2 to 3 years because you get to your top-notch manufacturing capacities of producing new types of weapons. And you put as your main idea destroying Russia. And that's in your documents. You
strategically weaken Russia. That's the official doctrine.
Yeah, but it's not only this. But in Ankara, he came up with basically declaring war. So why should we expect you to get you on the top of your mightiness, should I say?
So you are saying Europe and NATO are forcing
Of course.
Russia to attack because you
Exactly.
cannot wait till they have built up their arsenals.
Exactly. You have 3 times more people than we do, population. You have definitely very well developed industrial complex. You have great technological schools of weapon manufacturers. Why should we wait? You are telling that your main goal is to destroy Russia. You're saying about strategic defeat. You already shown us with zero doubt your attitude toward Russia, Russian culture. Why? You know, we know history. Every single century you're getting together in order to destroy Russia. And now with all this blah, blah, blah stuff coming from those Baltic states political leaders, from Polish political leaders, from Finnish political leaders, they all want part of Russia. They all want to grab land. And they have their own little historic explanations that I don't care about really. But the important question is, why should we wait? You are the one that willing to escalate, and we have to respond. And that's the reality. By the way, Putin always said, I'm open for any form of discussion. My telephone is there, I can always pick it up. But you decided not to have any form of negotiation with Putin. You decided, and you started blaming everyone of those European political leaders that were trying to establish communication with Putin. At the same time, you are telling Ukrainian Nazis that you can do whatever you want to, with whomever you want to. You let Zelensky threaten European Prime Minister, active European Prime Minister. Zelensky threatened Viktor Orban and members of his family. And Europe did nothing to protect Viktor and his family. Nothing. Not even one single word. So Zelensky is absolutely sure that whoever in Europe will go against him, he will tell his dogs, go and bring me his head. And Europe won't do shit. When he told his Secret Service agents, go and kill in Monaco, can you imagine if something like this would happen in France, Monaco, Italy, wherever, Germany, with one of the Russian citizens? If one of the Russian citizens is killed in Germany by another Russian citizen, on political reasons or whatever, what's going to happen afterwards? Definitely, first of all, there will be new sanctions. Russian ambassador will be immediately asked to come to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and a couple of Russian diplomats will be thrown out of the country, correct? What happened after terrorist attack that he decided not to call terrorist attack, just an assassination in Monaco? Nothing. Not even a word. Although all French press stated that, according to the information from France police, the assassination has been fulfilled by Ukrainians by a direct order of Ukrainian Special Forces, Secret Service. Zero. Zero official reaction. Hypocrisy, stupidity, betrayal of national interests. I will leave it up to people of France to decide.
I once said in one of my programs, they probably kill me for that. I said, Russian President Putin deserves the Nobel Prize for patience.
It is.
Because-
It's very true.
Because when there was the Russia Economic Forum, in St. Petersburg, there were these strikes against St. Petersburg from drones from Ukraine, probably flying through Baltic territory. The Russian president was there. So, and the city was struck while he was there. And I was just imagining what would happen if a similar thing, for example, in Austin, Texas, would have happened when President Trump was there. Some foreign power would strike Austin and the American president is there. How would the Americans react? And how did the Russians, you could say, reluctantly frame and comment this? I mean, this is an amazing thing. Just pointing out the different standards we have. But let me ask you one thing. If I listen to you, and my prime concern is how can we get out of this vicious circle of escalation?
Well, I have certain ideas of how it can be done.
How can we get out, Vladimir?
Yeah.
What is your advice? What
At
would
first,
you
on
suggest?
Putin, don't underestimate Putin. Revenge is a dish that has to be served cold. So don't you worry. I know Putin for many years. Making decisions like this, he is never emotional. But he will never forget, and he will never forgive. So don't you worry. Don't you worry. But he will be always very... There's a word in Russian that doesn't exist in any other language. Справедливость. It's a combination of justice, fairness, righteousness. So Putin is this kind of a man. So there will be justice served. Definitely. Definitely. But it will be fair. And it will be right. On the right time. How shall we get out of this? There is an easy way out. As of now, NATO believes that it is the most powerful military alliance in the world. Because there are no other military alliances. If China will evaluate all the risks, and if China will come to a conclusion that next target for capitalistic animals of this world, as we say NATO, predators, capitalistic predators will be China, as actually stated in the documents, then China can come up with the proposal when there will be military alliance between North Korea, China, Russia, Belarus, and maybe even Iran. And I do not think that there will be any military power in this world willing to test these capabilities of this military alliance. Then NATO will be forced to come to terms. Because one thing is to fight Russia with its economy and with its population. Another thing is to fight this military union of absolutely different amount of people living on the territory and economic potential. That's one of the way out. Yes, it's Iron Curtain that will go through Europe. And by the way, that will hurt Europe tremendously. Europe is the side that's losing in this war. Because now Europe is facing problem with gas and the price of the gas, decrease of the level of living, decrease of income. Europe is facing waves of migration of people that are not willing to accept European way of life and European culture. Europe has lost huge Russian market. Europe has lost all money coming from Russia. The wealth of Europe has been built on affordable energy resources coming from Russia and an affordable labor force in China.
Mm.
No longer. What added value you have? You have to ask you this question.
I think this is a very important point you're just making. This is another way out of this confrontation, of this escalation, of this apocalyptic scenario, which is, you pointed out, Europe has to ask itself, the countries in Europe, they have to ask itself, what is our interest? What do we gain from supporting the former Soviet Republic Ukraine in a war, potentially world war stuff, against Russia? What is exactly the gain of this support? And what do we lose? And what do we unleash if we continue on this path? And this serious question, I mean, if the European citizens, the people in Europe, start to ask themselves this, the question will be, what will their leaders decide? I have the trust, the confidence that at the end of the day, the politicians will not rule against the will of their people. And I see a growing resentment against this war support. Of course, there are also millions of people who are totally convinced that we have to stop Russia and this is a total injustice what Russia has done, and it goes against every principle we have built this European system on. But at the end of the day, I think the question you raise is important.
Not part of your damn system, neither Ukraine. And by the way, we've never been against Ukraine becoming part of European society.
Mm.
There's only one thing that we've been always stating: no NATO.
Yeah. I have read recently a lot in the books of a Russian writer one is also not supposed to read. He's a very fascinating writer. By the way, he lived 400 meters from my office where I'm sitting right now here in Zolikon at the Lake of Zurich. And his name, of course, you know him, is Ivan Ilyin. Ivan Ilyin, he spent his time, after he had to flee from Germany, he spent his time in Switzerland. He died here. And Viktor Vekselberg was paying millions of Swiss francs in order to repatriate his body. And there was like a state funeral, I think in the year 2007 or 8, organized by President Putin. Ivan Ilyin, I think, is one of the most interesting writers of politics and theology in the 20th century, in this crazy century.
A few times he has been quoted by Putin in his official speeches.
Okay, and Ivan Ilyin, I'm just reading a text of him where he talks about hatred. And what is the meaning of hatred, and if people start to hate each other? And this is a question, I mean, I'm from Switzerland. I'm not, of course, I know the situation of our neutrality, etc. I have a respect for, of course, both warring parties. So that's the background of my question. Ilyin writes, when someone is hated by another guy, he has to ask himself, where does this hatred come from? What have I done which has unleashed this hatred upon me? And this is for me a true mystery. This crazy amount of Russia hatred in the West. I know a bit what you are saying about this, but let's move beyond the cliches. What could be, what can Russia do, or what must Russia do in order to eliminate the factors in the Ivan Ilyin sense, which have stirred up this hatred against your country, which I do not share, which I condemn? But I have to say, it's some kind of effect we have to deal with.
Sure,
What's your
You know why
reflection.
you don't hate us?
Sorry?
Do you know why you don't hate us?
Me?
Yeah.
Why I don't hate?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Russia is a totally fascinating country with an extremely interesting culture.
Because in your family, there's no beef with Russia.
Yeah.
Because you're not fighting against us. The hatred right now in Germany is quite easy to understand because we won the Second World War.
Mhm.
And because the beautiful life of Germans at the end of 30s and the beginning of 40s has been destroyed. The grandfather of Annalena Baerbock has been killed by awful Russians. Grandfathers and grandmothers of Germans, they suffered a lot of ugly Russian hordes that invaded Germany for no reason.
Mm.
But we came to your land and we won this war. But right now, in the heads of those revanchistic creatures of Germany, they're saying, now it's our chance. Now, once again, we can get back to Reich. Now, once again, we can prove that here we are. Nietzsche is still with us. Wagner is still with us. Here we are. We are the Obermensch of this world. And we'll show those Untermensch the place. We kept silence for 80 years because we were scared of them, but now there's our chance to get back. Now it's our chance for revenge. That's why in those countries that do not have the family history of beef with Russia, the hatred against Russia is almost non-existent. But when there's family history, yes, it reacts on everyday decisions of recent day politicians. But adding to Ilyin, as a Calvinist, you'll appreciate this Orthodox view of Russian Orthodox Church on hatred and a lot on hate and a lot of other things. In Russian tradition, and that's why we don't hate you. You hate sin, but not the sinner.
Mhm.
We never hate you. We hate sins in you. We don't have hatred against Ukrainians, Germans, Polish guys. We never do. We hate your sins, but we do believe that all of you deserve chance to get back to normal, to get rid of your sins. It's up to you.
Vladimir, thanks for this conversation on very dark
Anytime.
topics. Let's keep it up and let's follow the news and let's see how everything is going. Thanks a lot.
Danke and auf
Best
Wiedersehen.
regards to Moscow. And thanks also to your theological, you could almost call it silver lining on the horizon.
Thank you.
Spasiba bolshoi.